"What the hell are you doing in my house?" Imagine a neighbor so obsessed with control that she's willing to weaponize 911 just to get inside your house. Not because she saw anything, but because she wanted power over a family that owed her nothing. But what she didn't know was that the 911 call she made was going to backfire on her in the most brutal way possible. The Black family had barely lived in the neighborhood for 3 weeks when Brenda Sterling decided they were her new project. Marcus Vance and his wife, Sarah Vance, moved into the house after David and Susan Palmer sold it in frustration, driven out by the same woman now stalking Marcus's driveway every other morning with a clipboard and a look of entitlement carved into her face. The house wasn't under any HOA. The real estate agents said it. The documents proved it. The previous owners warned them clearly. She tried to force us into the HOA. We refused. She made our lives hell until we sold. Marcus thought they were exaggerating. They weren't. Brenda showed up on day 3. No greeting, no welcome. Just a shove of a binder to Marcus's chest and a fake smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You'll need to replace this mailbox. It violates our HOA standards." Marcus didn't argue. He pointed out the boundary line. He showed her the paperwork. He explained calmly that his property was not, and never had been, under HOA jurisdiction. Brenda ignored every word and walked away like he'd just inconvenienced her. The next day, a violation notice appeared on the mailbox. The day after, she returned with a tape measure. Then came complaints about porch bulbs, lawn height, door color, anything she could invent. The truth that Marcus didn't know yet was simple. Brenda had a key. David and Susan Palmer gave it to her years ago in case of emergencies, and she never returned it. When they sold the house, Brenda kept the key. She told no one. She assumed she'd need it again. And now that Marcus and Sarah refused to bow to her imaginary authority, she planned to use it. Marcus finally put up a small security gate, just a keypad and simple metal bars. Nothing dramatic. Was enough to keep Brenda off their property. But it made her furious. She demanded the gate code. She claimed community inspection rights. She threatened non-existent HOA penalties. Marcus saved every voicemail. By the 3rd week, she wasn't even pretending to follow rules. She wanted control. She wanted obedience. And she wanted inside their house. Standing at the gate one afternoon, staring at Marcus's home with pure hatred simmering in her eyes, Brenda made the decision that pushed everything over the edge. If they wouldn't let her in, she'd let herself in. And she already had the key. Brenda waited until the perfect opening when Marcus's car pulled out of the driveway. And Sarah's car followed 10 minutes later. The house was empty. The street was quiet. And Brenda was done pretending to follow any rules but her own. She walked straight to the gate, glanced around, and muttered, "You think you can shut me out?" Then she pulled out the key she'd kept hidden for years. But before she used it, she played her real card. Brenda called 911. Her voice was shaky, dramatic, and full of fake concern. "I'm hearing screaming coming from 442 Oakmont Drive," she said. "They won't answer the door, and I'm really worried someone's hurt." She hung up with a satisfied smile. That, as her shield. If anyone questioned why she was inside the house, she'd claim she broke in to save someone. She believed she was untouchable. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have predicted, was who heard that call. Officer Sarah Vance, the wife of the Black homeowner, the same home Brenda just made a false report about. A sworn, fully trained, uniformed police officer. She recognized the address instantly. Sarah was already in her cruiser when the call came through, heading back to the precinct from a routine patrol. The second she heard the fake report, she flipped her lights off, hit the gas, and rerouted straight home. Have you ever dealt with someone who gets drunk on fake authority and tries to control things that don't belong to them? What would you do if that person went so far they actually broke into your house? Before we go further, What city or country are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where our viewers are tuning in from. And if you believe in standing up to people who abuse power, smash that like button and subscribe to Karen Conflict. Because some battles aren't about houses at all. They're about refusing to let bullies run your life. Brenda, meanwhile, strolled right up to the front door. She glanced left and right, saw no neighbors watching, and slid the key into the lock like she'd done it 1,000 times. The door opened smoothly. She stepped inside. No hesitation. No authorization. Just pure entitlement. She began taking photos of the entryway. Documenting violations, she whispered to herself like she was building a case no one asked for. She walked into the living room, opened a cabinet, peeked into a hallway. She wasn't inspecting. She was snooping. When she finished snooping and took one last picture, this time of the hallway, she walked back toward the front door with the confidence of someone who believed she had played the system perfectly. She twisted the knob, opened the door, and stopped dead. Officer Sarah Vance stood on the porch, uniform on, badge shining, squad car parked behind her. Their eyes met. Brenda's entire body locked up. Sarah didn't wait. Her voice was steel. "Brenda Sterling, did you just break into my home?" Brenda's face drained of color instantly. Brenda didn't speak. She couldn't. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just a trembling inhale as she stared at Sarah's uniform, like it was the end of her world. Sarah stepped forward slowly, one hand resting on her duty belt, the other lifting to point at the open door behind Brenda. Inside, Sarah said sharply, "Now." Brenda backed up automatically, stumbling as Sarah guided her into the living room. She had just finished snooping through. The officer closed the door behind them with a quiet click. "Hands where I can see them," Sarah ordered. Brenda lifted her hands, shaking violently. "I heard screaming," she blurted out. "I was checking for an emergency. I was trying to help." Sarah cut her off. "You reported screaming at my house when no one was home. You entered using a key you should not have, and you're walking around my living room taking photos." Her tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. Every word landed like a slap. You weren't helping anyone. Brenda's excuses collapsed instantly. Her voice cracked. "It's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like," Sarah said. She lifted her radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Be advised. We have a confirmed false report and a burglary in progress at my residence. Send back up." The radio crackled back. "Copy Unit 12. Units en route. ETA 3 minutes. Brenda's knees buckled. Burglary." She choked. No, I'm the HOA president. I'm allowed to inspect. You're allowed nothing in this house," Sarah snapped. "This property is not under any HOA, and even if it were, HOA presidents don't get keys to private homes." Brenda's eyes widened. She knew she was done. Sarah walked behind her and pulled out her cuffs. "You entered without permission. You used a stolen key, and you triggered emergency services with a fake report. Click one cuff locked. That is breaking and entering. Click the second cuff secured. That is criminal trespass." Sarah tightened them firmly, and filing a false emergency call. Brenda started to cry. Not loud sobs, but panicked, pathetic whimpers. Please, can we talk about this?" "No," Sarah said. "Turn around and walk." Brenda shuffled toward the front door in cuffs, her body shaking, her face streaked with tears. Sarah stayed behind her, calm and solid. As the door opened, neighbors were already gathering outside, staring. Brenda's humiliation had only begun. By the time Sarah walked Brenda out onto the porch, 2 patrol cars were already pulling up, lights flashing silently, no sirens. The neighbors across the street froze mid-conversation, every pair of eyes locked onto one sight. Brenda Sterling, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, standing in handcuffs on the porch of the very house she had tried to control. The backup officers stepped out, Officer Reynolds and Officer Hayes. "Officer Vance, you good?" Reynolds asked. "Yeah," Sarah said calmly. Suspect entered my home with a stolen key and filed a false report. Brenda snapped, desperation bursting out of her. "I had authority. I'm the HOA president. I was conducting an inspection." Officer Hayes looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "This house isn't under your HOA," he said flatly. Brenda froze. Her lips trembled. That's not true." I heard screaming. Reynolds cut her off. "Ma'am, dispatch replayed your call. There were no screams. You reported a fake emergency to justify illegally entering someone's home. That's a felony." Brenda's face fell apart. Her knees buckled, and Sarah grabbed her arm to keep her from collapsing entirely. "Put her in the cruiser," Sarah said. They escorted Brenda down the walkway, neighbors whispering, phones raised, documenting the downfall of the woman who had tormented the block for years. She begged, cried, pleaded. None of it mattered. "Please, it was a misunderstanding. Please, I didn't mean." "You meant every second of it," Sarah said, "and you've done it before." They placed Brenda in the back of the patrol car. The door shut with a final heavy thump. Minutes later, Sarah stood with the officers, giving her statement. "She's been trying to force my family under the HOA since we moved here," Sarah explained. "We have voicemails, notices, photos, weeks of harassment. Today, she escalated. She broke in." The officers nodded. The case was airtight. Brenda was transported downtown, booked for breaking and entering, criminal trespass, filing a false police report, misuse of emergency services. Word spread fast. That night, the HOA board called an emergency meeting and unanimously removed Brenda from her position. Turns out, she'd harassed half the neighborhood. No one defended her. A restraining order was issued the next morning. She was banned from coming within 100 feet of Marcus and Sarah Vance's home. The locks were changed. The house was finally safe, and for the first time since moving in, the family slept in peace. Brenda's reign ended exactly where it belonged, in the back of a police cruiser. If you believe justice hits hardest when it finally lands where it's deserved, smash that like button and subscribe to Care and Conflict.